businesswoman too. After graduating high school, I went to a community college, and that is when my life really changed, but not in the way I'd hoped. I was living with a volatile person, and I was in really bad shape emotionally and psychologically. One night, during an evening class I was taking, I got a 911 page from my therapist. I hurried to a payphone to call her, and she told me that the violent person I was living with had contacted her. "You need to leave the college now," she said urgently. "He's on his way there, and he said if he finds you, he's going to kill you." I ran to the parking lot, but I was in such a panic that I couldn't remember where I'd parked. As I frantically looked for my car, I saw the person's car driving slowly back and forth near the entrance to the lot. My legs felt like quicksand, and I was screaming, but no sound was coming out. My only thought was, "Run, Kedma, run!" Just then, I spotted my car and ran toward it, ducking down and dashing between vehicles. Staying crouched down, I opened my car door just enough to grab my books, the only thing I cared about, and ran back to the payphone. I called a friend who came and picked me up on the other side of campus, out of sight of the parking lot. Meanwhile, the perpetrator continued to drive back and forth, searching for me. It was unsafe to go back to my place of residence. In fact, the person posed such a threat to me that I literally went into hiding. I had no money, no job, no car, and I was homeless. I stayed with a friend at first, and a group of friends banded together to find me my first home and purchase items for me to live there. It was an illegal basement apartment in a squalid house in what was essentially a ghetto. But that cockroach-infested hovel was my safe haven for 5 years. In addition, my friends helped me find my first full-time minimum wage job as a bill collector. In my interview, I communicated that I was in hiding, and if they hired me, I needed to have my information held with the strictest of confidence. The problem was that I couldn't afford my education. One of my professors, who was among the few people who knew about my situation, encouraged me to petition the college for a hardship scholarship. So I wrote a letter to the college's finance committee explaining the painful circumstances I was facing, and I was called in for an interview. After answering a few questions, I pled my case, stating that I'd lost everything: my home, my family, my car, my identity. And the only thing I had left to live for was the opportunity for an education. Afterward, I was directed to wait in the secretary's office while the committee deliberated on my case. As I waited nervously, I asked the secretary for a pen and a sheet of paper. I wrote a letter to God, having little faith that my request would be heard, since God had never showed up to help me before. In the letter, I promised that if the scholarship committee would give me a scholarship, I would use my education and abilities to help other people in need for the rest of my life. About 2 hours later, I was summoned back to the conference room. One of the committee members walked over to me and said, "Kedma, please stand up." My knees shook as I rose from the chair. The woman took my hand and shook it, saying, "Thank you for the woman you are. You're getting a full scholarship to this college." Because that small group of people believed in me when they had no reason to, I set out on the path that led to where I am today, and I made good on the promise I'd made in that letter, but it didn't happen quickly or easily. It took 5 years to get my bachelor's degree, the last 3 at a local university on a full scholarship from the hospital where I worked as a bill collector. The whole time I continued to work full-time and to live in the basement apartment. My goal was to become a business coach because I realized there were 2 ways to positively affect someone's life.